know what our measure is. And our measure for anything that we do in this world, any effort that we make, any sacrifice that we take, any step that we put forward for anything we do, our simple measure of is this fruitful or not is, number one, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala notice? Right? Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala notice it? Did He appreciate it? Did He like it? And a consequence of Allah noticing something, essentially what we're saying here is, did Allah accept it? Did Allah accept it? Right? It's a simple measure. Anything I do, whether it be that I wake up and pray Fajr in the morning, whether it be that I wake up and I brush my teeth in the morning, or whether it be that I wake up and I go to work in the morning, or whether it be that I wake up and I get my kids ready for school. Every single step that we take, however mundane it may be, our simple measure of is this fruitful, is this effective, is this something that I would consider to be successful, is purely dependent on did Allah notice it, right? And a consequence of that is, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it? I don't have to be so dependent on what the rest of the world thinks of me. I don't have to be dependent on the acceptance, or you can say noticing of the rest of the world. Now, I think the best examples of this are what we see in the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Hajar alayhi salam. And I'm going to pull an example from both of them. These are the days of Hajj, the days of Eid, right? And this is where we're remembering the sacrifices of the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And I think if we were to sort of take their entire circumstance and put it in a nutshell, what we'll realize quickly is that whatever sacrifices they made or whatever efforts they put forth, no one really noticed them at the time. No one saw them coming. No one was able to witness it. There was no public display of their sacrifice. It was done in isolation. It was done in solitude. But yet somehow, millennia later, we're talking about them and reflecting upon them. Let me give you a couple of examples from their life. Let's look at the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam and his building of the Kaaba with his son Ismail alayhi salam. Allah Ta'ala talks about this in the Quran. وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ. The two of them together, father and son, built this house. Now after they built this house, we know that they made dua that Ibrahim alayhi salam made dua that Allah accepted. Now after the house was now built, the house of Allah was now built, Ibrahim alayhi salam was given a command or an instruction by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it comes in the Quran, Allah tells us what he was told. He says, وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. Now call people toward the Hajj. Now, think about the circumstance and think of what must have been going through the mind of Ibrahim alayhi salam at this time. They're in biwadin ghayri dhi zar'. They're in a barren, desolate land that's essentially rock and desert, right? I mean, if you've been there, you know there's no people living there. There's no settlement. There's no water. Later there is, but there's essentially nothing there. So there's no people around. And now Allah Ta'ala is telling him to make the call of Hajj, call the adhan of Hajj. And what's going to happen? وَأَذِّن فِي النَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ يَأْتُوكَ رِجَالًا وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. Make the call, make the announcement of Hajj, call the adhan for Hajj. And what's going to happen? That people are going to come on every riding animal or on foot. يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. And they're going to come from every single corner of the world. Now, if I was in the shoes of Ibrahim, I'd think, hold on, who am I making this call to? There's no one here to listen to me. When I call the adhan for the prayer, sometimes I wonder if no one's in the masjid, who's here to listen? What's the point? If no one's here to notice the effort or the sacrifice that I'm about to make, what's the point of me making it all together? What's the point? And in this case, Allah's not saying make a personal sacrifice for yourself. Now call all of humanity to the Hajj. So I'd be thinking like, this doesn't really make sense. But look what happens. Ibrahim alayhi salam makes the call in whatever way it is. And exactly how Allah Ta'ala described in the Quran is exactly what we see today. وَعَلَى كُلِّ ضَامِرٍ يَأْتِينَ مِنْ كُلِّ فَجٍّ عَمِيقٍ. That because of the call of Ibrahim that was made to no one, no Twitter account was sharing this. No Facebook was live streaming this. There was no announcement, not a single billboard. Not a single billboard was there to tell people to come for Hajj. And now, millennia later, thousands of years later, you have millions of people that are making incredible sacrifices in order to respond to that silent call of Ibrahim alayhi salam. It's incredible. The power of Ibrahim alayhi salam's adhan is more powerful than anyone's call today, no matter all the resources that we have. no matter the size of the microphone or the amplifier or the number of followers that I may have, right, on my social media account, Ibrahim alayhi salam's call is the most famous call. And it's so widely accepted. And exactly how Allah said it. And we see today that people from every culture, every background, literally every single corner of the world heard the call of Ibrahim, and they're all responding to it. And we are all responding to it in the form of making an effort for Hajj or making an effort for Umrah. It's incredible. It's incredible. Even today, you still don't see people saying, you don't see billboards that say, make your Hajj. Because everybody, every Muslim, no matter how practicing they are, every Muslim has this inclination in their heart that someday they're going to go and perform the Hajj. Why? Why? Why does it bother or why does it concern the average Muslim? It's because the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the unwitnessed call of Ibrahim alayhi salam, at the time was so powerful and so deep that it penetrated the hearts of every single believer, and it will penetrate until the end of time. It will penetrate until the end of time. It's such a widely accepted call. So here we see an example that when a person, in this case Ibrahim salam, when a person follows the instruction of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and does it with sincerity, even if nothing lines up and even if no one witnesses the effort, look at the long-term effect that occurred from the call of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Let me give you another example. And this is from the life of Hajar alayhi salam, showing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts people. Now we know the story that when Ibrahim dropped his wife Hajar and his son Ismail, they dropped him in a barren desert of Makkah Mukarramah, present-day Makkah Mukarramah. And he dropped them off there and he leave them be. And as he's walking away, she's wondering, why exactly is this happening? But eventually she recognizes that this must be because Allah Ta'ala instructed him to leave them there. So she comes to terms with it. Now they're there. It's a barren, desolate land. There's nothing there. There's no vegetation. There's no food. There's no water to drink. Nothing whatsoever. And now Ismail alayhi salam, who's just an infant at the time, is now crying out of hunger and out of thirst. And what does Hajar alayhi salam do? She, looking for water, starts to travel between the two mountains of Safa and Marwa. And she walks to Safa and then back to Marwa, and back to Safa and back to Marwa, and back to Safa and back to Marwa. Right? And she eventually stops at Marwa. And the ulama mention that she would have continued going, but she was just, it's hot. It's a long stretch. If anyone's done the sa'i of Umrah or Hajj, you know how long it is. It's not easy. This is someone who doesn't even have food and water to quench her thirst as she's doing this. So she would have continued, but that was all she could have handled, and that was it. That's where she had stopped. But it's a mother. Now look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala noticed this action of Hajar alayhi salam. None of us were there. Not a single other human being was present. There was no live stream of the incident or the episode. There was no camera, there was no social media account, there was not a single other human being except for the two of them present. And what is Hajar alayhi salam doing? Walking between these two mountains. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala notices this. And then He appreciates it. And He accepts it. And then says that moving forward, every single believer, at the time of the Prophet and onward, every single believer will have to walk in these exact same steps as well. Between Safa and Marwa, if a person goes for sa'i or goes to sa'i for Hajj or for Umrah, right? فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتَ أَوْ اعْتَمَرَ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِ أَنْ يَطَّوَّفَ بِهِمَا. That we have to walk in the same footsteps as Hajar alayhi salam. It's incredible. Now, so what her action that was so silently performed, but with the sincerity in her heart, was so powerful and so impactful that it's been ingrained until the end of time. Now, what I find even more amazing about this whole incident, I think, I just reflect upon this constantly, and I think, what noble act of worship was Hajar alayhi salam performing that caused her to be ingrained in the books of history and in the tradition of our deen until the end of time? What was it? She was searching for water for her son. Now, think about this. Many of us are parents. Who wouldn't search for water when their child was thirsty? Is there a single mother in the universe who wouldn't search for water if their child was thirsty? Or who wouldn't search for food if the child was hungry? Is there a single father that would react differently? the natural reaction of Hajar alayhi salam, which was to have a concern for her son and his well-being and his upbringing, was so accepted and appreciated by Allah that every single person has to perform something based off of an otherwise mundane act that every other mother and every father would do as well. And that is incredible. How Allah appreciates those things that appear to be so mundane. Something that is that's almost a natural response of a parent is so noticed by Allah and so appreciated by Allah that He says that I'm now going to take this and make this a requirement for every single believer that comes moving forward. You have to mimic these steps, not because you're searching for water for your child, but because I appreciated the searching of this mother for her child, and now I want everyone to follow her footsteps. I want everyone to follow her footsteps. What I also find amazing about the incident, did Hajar alayhi salam know when she was doing this that her footsteps would be ingrained in history until the end of time? In this day and age, when I make a decision about something, I think, who else is witnessing this? Who else is watching this? Is it worth my time and effort to do this? And what's the long-term impact going to be? She had no idea. She's there as a mother who's caring for her child, just like any other mother or any parent would care for her child, care for the child. She didn't know the value of this deed in the eyes of Allah. So it's a reminder for us as well that those things that we deem to be mundane, in this day and age, it's interesting because we think that in order for me to accomplish something in deen, that I have to climb Mount Everest, figuratively speaking, or I have to get to the moon, or I have to pray tahajjud all night, or I have to be, performing A, B, and C deeds, or I have to win the Nobel Prize, or I have to have so many people comment on my tweet or my hadith reference or something else. The public has to see it, because if the public doesn't see it, then I'm a nobody and I'm a nothing. Right? This is the standard that we've sort of established today. But what we learn from the footsteps of Hajar, the silent footsteps of Hajar alayhi salam, which is the effort that every parent makes. And that's the point here, is that those things that we deem to be mundane, Allah doesn't deem it to be mundane. Those things that we think no one are not worth noticing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala notices. Those things that we think are irrelevant are relevant in the eyes of Allah. So every step we take can be noticed and appreciated by Allah if it's done with sincerity, irrespective of who is watching us. So we see this from the life of both Ibrahim and Hajar alayhi salam, a family who sacrificed with sincerity for themselves, for their children, and did it desiring the pleasure of Allah. And we see the effect of their silent actions and what profound effect it had later. So it's important for us to reflect upon this, and I'll summarize with these two take-home points. The first is that we should remind ourselves always and constantly that the measure of the success of any effort that we make or any step that we take is purely whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala noticed it or not. That is the measure of success. And the second point is that even if no one else in the world knows the efforts that we have to put forth, the struggles and the sacrifices that we're making for our families, for our parents, for our community, the challenges that we're going through in our day-to-day life, even if no one else witnesses this, no one else comments on it, no one else is appreciating it, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is appreciating it, then we've made gold out of every single effort and circumstance that we've made. Every single effort and circumstance that we find ourselves in. The noticing of Allah makes the mundane extraordinary. The noticing of Allah, it makes the irrelevant relevant. And it makes the silent actions that we perform in solitude, and I say actions very broadly, not ibadah, broadly. The silent actions that we perform, it allows them to reverberate across generations in the way the silent steps and actions of our father Ibrahim alayhi salam and our unwitnessed steps of Hajar alayhi salam have reverberated and will reverberate until the end of time. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to appreciate the sacrifices of our parents before us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to place value to those things that He appreciates and notices. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to walk in the footsteps of our forefathers. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi subhanallah al-azim aqulu qawli hadha wa astaghfirullah li wa lakum. ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم، وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر، وأشهدهم في أمر الله عمر، وأصدقهم حياء عثمان، وأقضاهم علي، وفاطمة سيدة نساء أهل الجنة، والحسن والحسين سيدا شباب أهل الجنة، وحمزة أسد الله وأسد رسوله. اللهم اغفر للعباس وولده مغفرة ظاهرة وباطنة لا تغادر ذنبا، رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. عباد الله اتقوا الله واذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم، ولا ذكر الله تعالى أكبر، والله يعلم ما تصنعون.
Brothers, please step forward and fill the gaps in front of you.
These fans, do they normally turn it on or off? I think so. It's warm, right?
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
Straighten the rows. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. إن الصفا والمروة من شعائر الله فمن حج البيت أو اعتمر فلا جناح عليه أن يطوف بهما، فمن تطوع خيرا فإن
فإن الله شاكر عليم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وإذ قال إبراهيم رب اجعل هذا البلد آمنا واجنبني وبني أن نعبد الأصنام رب إنهن أضللن كثيرا من الناس فمن تبعني فإنه مني ومن عصاني فإنك غفور رحيم. ربنا إني أسكنت من ذريتي بواد غير ذي زرع عند بيتك المحرم ربنا ليقيموا الصلاة فاجعل أفئدة من الناس تهوي إليهم وارزقهم من الثمرات لعلهم يشكرون. ربنا إنك تعلم ما نخفي وما نعلن وما يخفى على الله من شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء. الحمد لله الذي وهبني على الكبر إسماعيل وإسحاق إن ربي لسميع الدعاء. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر ولله الحمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر.
Assalamu Alaikum. Thank you, Shaykh Ashhar, for such a nice khutbah. Jazakallah. A few announcements for today. First of all, a reminder again to everyone, IAGD membership renewal is due. The deadline is July 31st for everyone to renew their membership and to be able to vote in the upcoming election. So please try to renew your membership as soon as possible. Either you can write a check for $360 for a family of 2, or there is a check-o-matic process which allows you to pay $30 per month for a family of 2. So either way, please try to fill out and renew your membership as soon as possible. Couple of other reminders. Seniors exercise classes have started as of June 26th. These are going to be conducted on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. and most likely these will be in the gym. And then the Sakina 8-week summer program has started, and it will run from June 25th to August 13th every Sunday between 2 to 4 p.m. All this information goes out through email, regular